For today's lesson, we will talk about the emergent literature genre, which is the doodle fiction and the diary of a wimpy kid. At the end of this lesson, I am expecting that students will be able to define doodle fiction as a literary genre and distinguish its key characteristics using Diary of a Wimpy Kid as the primary example. Explain doodle fiction, its origin, evolution, and how it mixes drawings with stories, and also analyze the core elements of doodle fiction, such as plot, characters, setting, point of view, theme, and style through the lens of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Now let's define first the doodle fiction. When we say doodle fiction, it is a genre where hand drawn doodles, sketches, and scribbles are integrated into the text. Doodle fiction is a 21st century literary genre that blends hand drawn doodles, simple sketches, and handwritten style text to tell a story, often in place of traditional type font, and is heavily character driven and uses visuals to enhance the narrative, often adding a humorous, diary like, or relatable tone to the text. Doodle fiction is also more text heavy than manga and graphic novels, and closer to prose fiction than comics in format. While the drawings and pictures are made to help enhance the story, to add humorous elements that will help to attract, make it interesting for the readers and viewers. An example is Doodle Dog by Eric Seltzer and Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Jeff Kinney. Let's proceed to the characteristics of Google fiction. Actually, we have four characteristics like hand drawn illustrations, integrated text and visuals, visual emphasis on emotions, interactive page layouts, and relatable characters. But now, let's focus first on the first characteristic, which is the hand drawn illustrations. Unlike traditional novels that use standardized fonts, doodle fiction authors use hand drawn graphics and handwritten style text. This gives the story an informal, raw, and personal feel, often mimicking a real journal or a sketchbook. An example of this is The Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Jeff Kinney. The book's pages are lined like school notebook and the doodles look like they were drawn by the middle school protagonist, Greg Heffley. Second, we have the integrated text and visuals. In this genre, drawings are not just decorations, they are essential storytelling elements. If you remove the illustrations, the story would lose its context or humor because the text and pictures work together to convey the full meaning. An example of this is The Day the Crayons Quit by Joe Daywalt. The text consists of letters written by crayons, and the accompanying drawings of those crayons are necessary to show their unique personalities and complaints. Third is the visual emphasis of emotions. Doodles use simple exaggerated lines to show complex emotions like extreme frustration, embarrassment, or joy more effectively than words alone. This visual commentary adds a layer of humor and sarcasm that resonates with readers. An example of this is Sarah's Scribbles by Sarah Anderson. This webcomic uses simple, sketchy art to perfectly capture the feeling of social anxiety or the struggle of everyday adulthood in a way that is immediately recognizable and funny. Next, we have the interactive page layouts. This is the doodle fiction that often breaks the traditional top to bottom leading rule. It features free-form layouts where text might wrap around a drawing, appear in speech bubbles, or be scratched out, making the reading experience feel more dynamic and interactive. An example of this is Dark Diaries by Rachel Renee Russell. The layout includes doodles, photos taped to pages, and various handwriting styles that make the reader feel like they are actually flipping through a teenager's private diary. Lastly, we have relatable characters. Because the art style is simple and imperfect, readers find the characters more accessible and human. The stars typically focus on everyday struggles like school, family, and friendships, making them highly relatable to young audiences. Example is The Timmy Failure by Stefan Pattis. Timmy is an optimistic but clueless kid detective whose simple, quirky illustrations make his regular childhood failures feel endearing and relatable to anyone who has ever felt a bit of out of place. Now let's proceed to the origin and evolution of doodle fiction. First, let us have the early influences. During this time, doodle fiction didn't appear out of nowhere. It was heavily influenced by children's and middle grade literature that successfully blended images and text. Example is The Adventure of Captain Underpants by Duff Pilkey as a primary influence. This series used a comic like style and integrated illustrations directly into the storytelling, which paved the way for the genre's mainstream success. Also, the graphic novels and illustrated diaries during this era that helped build the popularity of this format, proving that readers enjoyed story where the visuals were just as important as the written words. Next, we have the mainstream popularity. It focuses on the pivotal moment when the genre became a global phenomenon. Mid 20s onward is the era when doodle fiction moved from being a niche style to a mainstream success. Example is the Jeff Kinney's Diary of a Wimpy Kid on 2007 as the breakthrough work. While earlier books like Captain Underpants paved the way, Wimpy Kid solidified a specific doodle fiction identity by perfectly blending a traditional novel structure with handwritten style fonts and simple iconic drawings. And by using Greg Heffley's journal as the medium, it established the standard for the genre, a first person narrative where the doodles are not just decorations, but an essential part of the character's voice and storytelling. Now let's talk about the digital and global expansion during 2010 to present. During this period, doodle fiction transitioned from a Western publishing trend into a truly global phenomenon. The genre's accessibility, characterized by simple drawings and relatable themes, allowed it to cross cultural boundaries, leading authors worldwide to adapt the style for their own local audiences. Also, during this period, the shift from physical paper to digital platforms. With the rise of smartphones and tablets, doodle based stories have found a new home in mobile apps and digital versions. This evolution has allowed the genre to become more interactive than ever, utilizing digital drawing tools and webcomic formats to reach a tech savvy generation of readers. Now let's talk about the usual themes in doodle fiction. First, we have the coming of age. This is the big picture theme. It's all about the transition of childhood to adolescence. It focuses on the internal growth of the character. They are learning how to balance their responsibilities at school with their personal lives. The characters are often trying to figure out who they are. Are they the nerd, the athlete, or something else entirely? It's about the awkward process of growing up. Second, we have the misadventures and humor. This doodle fiction thrives on relatable failure. Instead of epic hero journeys, these stories focus on small everyday disasters. The humor usually comes from things going wrong, like a failed science project, a wardrobe malfunction, or saying the wrong thing to a teacher. Because it's doodle fiction, the drawings often emphasize the humor. For example, the character's exaggerated face when they are mortified. Third is the social life and popularity. This covers the external world of the character in the social hierarchy of school. It explores the stress of dealing with cliques and bullies. This includes the excitement and awkwardness of having crushes and the constant pressure to fit in rather than being an outcast. It mirrors the high stakes feelings that school social life has for most students. Fourth, we have the creativity and self expression. This theme explains why the doodle fiction format is so important to the story. Characters often use drawings to convey complex emotions or thoughts that they find difficult to understand using only text. The doodles serve as a personal diary or sketchbook, allowing the character to process their feelings in a way that feels more authentic and private. Lastly, we have everyday struggles. Instead of focusing on grand adventures, doodle fiction highlights the small battles that make up a student's daily life. It features the mundane but stressful tasks like finishing homework or doing chores. It frequently explores sibling rivalry and the tension of living with family members. By focusing on awkward moments, these stories help readers feel less alone in their own daily embarrassments. Now, let me introduce to you the author of the book, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. This is Jeff Kinney. He is the author and illustrator of the phenomenally successful Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. Since the first book was released in 2007, he published over 20 books in the series, which has sold more than 300 million copies worldwide. He is also a bookstore owner and a dedicated children's advocate. Now, let me give you facts about Jeff Kinney. Before becoming a renowned author, Kinney aspired to be a newspaper cartoonist. He often writes in his car in a cemetery in Plainville, Massachusetts to focus without interruptions. The series is credited with engaging reluctant readers, focusing on the comedic everyday struggles of middle schooler like Greg Heffley. The books have inspired numerous movies and a musical. Kinney owns an unlikely story, a bookstore in Plainville, Massachusetts. Let's simply discuss about the elements of the doodle fiction. First, we have the plot. This is the what of the story. It is the sequence of events and actions that the author has specifically chosen and ordered to create a meaningful narrative. In doodle fiction, the plot is often driven by everyday humorous or dramatic situations. Second is the characters. These are the individuals who live the story. They can be totally made up or based on real people. In this genre, characters are usually portrayed through simple, relatable drawings that highlight their personality traits. Third, we have the setting. This defines the where and when. It includes the physical geographic location and the time period in which the story takes place. A common setting for doodle fiction is a school or teenager's bedroom. Next, we have the person point of view. This is the lens through which we see the story. It is the narrative voice, often first person in this genre, like a diary, that guides the reader through the plot, introduces them to other characters, and shares internal thoughts and feelings. Next, we have the theme. This is the why or the deeper meaning. It is the central idea, message, or moral that the author explores, such as friendship, growing up, or overcoming embarrassment. Next, we have the style doodles. This is the defining element of the genre. Doodles are simple, hand-drawn style illustrations that carry a specific meaning. They aren't just decorations, they represent ideas, actions, or emotions that work alongside the text to tell the story. Now, let's watch a short video of the diary of a wimpy kid.
Okay, so last year my best friend Rowley Jefferson got voted class clown for my grade.
Zooey mama!
Well, I don't think they can take another vote or do a recount or whatever, but I totally got robbed on that. Everyone knows I'm the funniest kid at school. Even my teachers would tell you that. That was all me. Well, at least most of my teachers would. A couple of them don't seem to appreciate my sense of humor.
Greg Heffley, can you please come to the front of the room and do the problem?
Yo, mama.
Excuse me?
Yo, slap happy grandpappy.
Well, I hardly think that's...
Yo, big fanny grandmammy. Okay, so maybe I'm just not on the same wavelength as the grown-ups now.
Get your butts back on the field!
Huh?
Haha.
One.
Unbelievable.
But my classmates get me, and that's all that counts, because they're the ones who do the voting.
What you doing?
Eating chocolate?
Where'd you get it?
A doggy dropped it. I came up with that one too.
You're disgusting.
But if there's one person who knows how funny I am, it's Rowley. I've played like a billion pranks on him. In fact, I've taught Rowley just about everything he knows about comedy. One of the things I've taught Rowley is that timing is everything. But I've got to give credit where credit's due. I've learned most of my tricks from the master. I mean, when you've got an older brother like Roderick, you can't help but pick up a few things. Although I'll admit, having Roderick as a teacher hasn't always been the greatest experience. But Roderick's pranks are all small time, and sometimes they backfire.
Pardon me.
If I want to steal the class clown title from Rowley, I'm gonna have to do something big. I don't want to give away my plans or anything, but let's just say that my next trick is definitely gonna make a big splash. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
After watching the video, let's now analyze the elements of doodle fiction through the use of that short video. First, we have the plot. So the story follows Greg Heffley's quest to win the class clown title in the school year's book. As he feels he was unfairly overlooked for his best friend Rolly, he attempts to various pranks at school and at the home, often inspired by his older brother Roderick, culminating in a giant snowball prank that finally earns him the title. Second is the characters of the story. We have Greg Heffley, the ambitious and often mischievous protagonist who seeks popularity through humor. Second is Raleigh Jefferson. He is Greg's best friend who initially wins the class clown title. Third is Roderick Heffley, Roderick's older brother who is a source of prank inspiration. And of course, the teachers and characters. They provide the audience and the reactions to Greg's attempts at humor. Now let's find the setting of the story. This story is primarily set in middle school, Westport Middle School, and the Heffley home, providing a relatable backdrop for the everyday life and humor typical of the genre. Next is the point of view. So the story is told from Greg's first person perspective, giving readers direct insight into his thoughts, frustrations, and motivations. Now is the theme. This is the central theme is the desire for the recognition and the challenges of growing up, often explored through the lens of humor and the consequences of one's actions. Style. The style is the characteristic of doodle fiction, blending traditional narrative with hand-drawn illustrations and comic-like elements. This visual approach enhances the humors and makes the storytelling more engaging and accessible. So, how does the style show the character's feelings? Sometimes a character might feel a complex emotion like being overwhelmed or invisible that is hard to describe in a sentence. A simple doodle of a character shrinking or a giant storm cloud over their head communicates that feeling instantly. And that concludes the lesson for today.